Happy full moon in Leo. The Leo full moon perfected Thursday, January 25th at 9:53 a.m. on the West Coast, so adjust for your time zone accordingly. And full moons happen once a month, so they aren't necessarily watershed astrological events, but if you ask any bus driver or police officer or emergency room worker or school teacher or anyone who works with the public for that matter, they will tell you that at the full moon, in general, people are, it heightens emotions, it brings out the craziness in people. It tends to be a time of illumination and culmination. And speaking of illumination, the lighting is interesting right now. The sun is setting as I do this. This is the time that I could do it, but the sun rules Leo, so it seems appropriate that he has decided to join us for this talk on the full moon of Leo. And as I was saying, full moons happen once a month, but they are the time of the month where, emotions are heightened. And each full moon has slightly different themes that are prominent depending on the sign it's in. This one is in Leo. And so this full moon has a lot to do with Leo themes. But what makes it unique this year is that it is, so full moons are always in opposition to the sun. That's what makes a full moon. And so the sun is in Aquarius and the moon is in Leo. And what is particularly interesting about this full moon, it's the first full moon of 2024, and it's the first full moon in Leo of the Pluto in Aquarius era. Because as you know, if you follow me, Pluto just moved into Aquarius this weekend, where it is laying down the groundwork for a new 20-year chapter in our life, where some part of our life is going to really transform in very important and significant ways. And depending on your own personal birth chart, that's where this is happening for you. And that's why I definitely encourage you to contact me for a reading. You can follow me on Instagram at astrology.tarot.Eliane Nicole and go to the profile bio and click the contact button underneath, and it will take you to an email to get on my calendar and schedule a reading. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll put my email below in notes so that you can reach out to me to schedule a reading. And that reminds me, if you are watching this on Instagram, I'm only going to post the first few minutes, and the entire video will be available on YouTube. I'm not sure how long this video is going to be as I record it. I don't write these, I go off the cuff after having thoroughly studied the astrology, of course. So anyway, on back to the reading. So this full moon in Leo, it's the sign of the lion. Moon has to do with the emotional landscape. It's very feminine, the moon. And so there's real queen energy here. There's also lioness energy here. And, the tension, that's what I wanted to talk about. It's the first full moon in Leo since Pluto's been in Aquarius. And so it's highlighting this underlying creative tension that we will be working with on the Leo Aquarius polarity for the next 20 years. And so this is the first time we are, tasting that flavor, let's say, during the full moon. And so it's a unique flavor. It's not one that we've experienced yet in our lifetimes. And so, a lot of people won't even be aware, but if you pay attention, you'll notice, if you pay attention to the next couple of days while the moon is in Leo, and look at what's happening in your life, what this moon is highlighting, you will see hints of storylines that are going to be very transformational in your life over the next couple of decades, potentially. And it doesn't mean every single thing that happens is that, but it means that there are some things that, and it's the very early stages here, because, Pluto is at 0 degrees. This full moon is at 5 degrees, which brings me to the point that this full moon is squaring Jupiter. And that is something that is very characteristic, in particular, of this Leo full moon. It's squaring Jupiter in Taurus. Yes, again, if you didn't watch my Pluto into Aquarius 2024 video, go back and watch it. I posted it on Saturday, January 21st. I think 6 minutes of it are on Instagram, but the whole video is on YouTube. Please watch that. There's a lot of important information about Pluto moving into Aquarius, and I'm going to continue to build on that. We're going to be talking about Pluto and Aquarius a lot over these next years. It's an energy that we are all going to get to know really, really well, but we are at the very, very beginning stages of meeting this energy and working with this energy. And it's really going to change the whole way that we live in the world. And it has a lot to do with technology and virtual reality and AI and, the internet and the metaverse and other things that are soon to be invented that we don't even know exist yet, that are going to be part of our household vernacular by the time Pluto leaves Aquarius. And so it's hard to imagine an era like that. If you've lived through one, you can maybe have a taste of it. And those of us who were around when Saturn was in Aquarius in the early 90s, around the birth of the internet, have seen the arc of how an Aquarian energy can completely transform the culture. And we're on the precipice of another one of those complete culture transformations. It's the next level of what the internet did to our life, by the way this energy infiltrates everything we do. How we communicate with our friends and family, medicine, shopping, groceries, banking, education, any single thing that we do. And so we're on the precipice of another one of those complete turnovers. And so it's an exciting time for a lot of people. It's a very scary time for other people. I can't really tell people how to experience this. People have to go through their own process. But whether or not we like it, the new world is here. And we have to live in it if we're going to be here. And so that is part of what the square to Jupiter, I think, is about, because Jupiter is in Taurus, and Taurus is about Mother Earth and nature and the environment and like real life embodied experiences. Taurus is an earth sign, so it's all about what you can, the beauty that you can rest your eyes on, and the good food that you can put in your mouth, and the good sex that you can have by touching and feeling another human being, and the beautiful fragrance of flowers, or a beautifully cooked meal. Taurus is all about those real life embodied experiences. And so it's coming up against this full moon in Leo, who is also in an opposition to the sun in Aquarius. And it's highlighting, okay, in this Aquarian era that we're entering, part of the tension that we're dealing with is how, society as a whole is progressing. That's Aquarius. The Leo moon is highlighting it. And Leo is about our heart's desires and creative self-expression and joy and happiness and playfulness. It can also be about pride and courage, and it can be about protection and loyalty, and it can be about legacy as well. And so the Leo full moon and is highlighting the tension that exists. I think it's bringing together all of these tensions, or two of the main challenges that we will be dealing with as a collective in the Pluto and Aquarius era. And one is like real life embodied sensual experiences versus virtual digital metaverse. I hate, by the way, that they took the word meta and made it for the metaverse, because meta is a word that, I mean, let's give it to Ron Artest, first of all. Meta world peace, he was there way before Zuckerberg. But anyway, and I feel like Ron Artest deserved to wear that name more. But it's just like, meta has a whole other meaning that doesn't belong to Mark. Doesn't belong to Facebook. But the metaverse is, and I mean, I guess that's the whole Aquarian thing. If you look at the two Aquarian lines, we've got the metaverse, right? The Facebook fake metaverse. And then we've got the metaverse, which is the real metaverse, where our consciousness is tuning into higher vibrations, where we're creating a new reality for humanity with our vision and, with our humanitarian ideals that Aquarius represents. Pluto being an Aquarius, and that's the other thing. This full moon in Leo now, every year for the next 20 years, is going to oppose Pluto. So it's the full moons of Leo now are going to be a time of year where the shadow rises, because Pluto is Hades, god of the underworld. That's one of the things he represents. It's not the only thing he represents. And depending on your own personal astrology and what house he falls in, there's so many elements that come into play when you look at how these planets affect you personally. Pluto deals with issues of power and powerlessness, but sometimes Pluto represents people like underworld figures, or sometimes he represents billionaires, like plutocrats. And so there's all these levels that the archetypes can express themselves. But yeah, this full moon of Leo is kind of the first little taste, the first little glimpse we're getting of what this tension is going to be like. And it's, the real world versus the virtual world. It's real life experiences versus, virtual, digital experiences. And there's so much there. Now, also, because Jupiter is in Taurus and Jupiter is squaring the sun, it's like some action needs to be taken. So on the Taurus-Leo axis, when there's a square to the moon, it can be someone is overdoing it, too much of a good thing, even sunshine burns if you get too much kind of thing. But in general, Jupiter always brings an element of, I'm going to say it, I've said it a million times, grace and good fortune. Jupiter is the great benefic, and he does, when he's around, whether in a tough aspect or a harmonious aspect, there's usually big gifts that come from that. And with Leo moon squaring Jupiter in Taurus, there can be, with Leo and Taurus, there can be a sense of maybe, conspicuous consumption, maybe someone is showing off, their riches or their style or their beauty, that stepping into the spotlight, wanting to be seen, Leo vibe. Leo wants a lot of attention. And Aquarius, the opposition, the sun, is like wanting to kind of blend in. And so you see what these tensions are that are building. And the Leo Aquarius axis that we're going to be really having a lot of big themes for the human collective are, it's the axis of royals versus the commoners. It's the children versus the old people. It's the heart versus the mind. It's warmth versus cold. It's humor versus seriousness. It's, it's all of these things. I know I'm leaving out some of the other Aquarius, Leo. It's what the individual wants versus what's best for the group and what's best for the whole. And that is another thing that this full moon will highlight in many people's lives. Whatever group you're a part of, whether it's a family or a work group or, whatever kind of group, it's like, oh, this lighting is not good. Like the window sills are coming right into my face. But it's like what the individual's heart's desires are versus what is best for the group. This is a big tension. There can also be an element of, Leo is very protective. The Leo moon, she's a lioness. She's protective of her cubs. In some cases, it can be she's protective of her art, whatever her creative offering is to the world, whether it's children or something else that she's created. She's protecting that fiercely under this Leo full moon that is opposing the Aquarian sun. And the Aquarius sun, the sun also represents in charts the leadership, whereas the moon represents the populace. And so there is also a tension, that kind of tension that's really going to be present and during, these next years in many ways. So the oppositions are often, felt in a very oppositional way. The highest way to meet them is integration, but usually that takes time of working with the energy to get to that place, because Leo is very much what the heart wants, there's a passion, there's a drive, there's a desire. And Aquarius, the sun in Aquarius, wants to say what are the systems, what are the structures, what are the rules. There's a lot of blocks coming up to the Leo energy that is unbridled and just wants to burst forth with their creative expression or with what their heart desires. And so this tension is at play under this full moon, and even though the full moon will come and go and it's just like a couple day energy that we're talking about, it's highlighting a kind of energetic tension that we're going to be working with over a much longer period of time. And it's giving us our first taste of what Leo full moon periods are going to be like over these next years. And they're always going to be in January, for the next year. So it's like you can start to track this stuff and become kind of your own astrologer if you learn your chart and see what this is pulling out in your life and where, these kind of longer, slower, profound transformations are starting to unfold, imperceptible to the naked eye, except if you know astrology. So anyway, but there's a lot of other stuff going on in the sky. I mean, okay, so the square to Jupiter, I don't even remember if I've said everything that I really want to say about that, but I will also say that at the same time, and then the sun is going to square Jupiter Friday, so that's going to be like another bit of that, it's the real versus the virtual, and it's something that is causing action for us to build in this new era. We're starting to build the life that we want to lead in relationship to that concept of the real embodied experiences versus the digital virtual experiences. And what else did I want to say? This moon in Friday morning, the Leo moon will form a trine to Chiron. Am I right? Yes, it's going to form a trine to Chiron. And so there's a very healing energy there. However, you know, Chiron is, well, I don't want to get into that right now necessarily. But yes, there is a potential for healing energy, healing around children, healing around hearts. Healing can manifest in many different ways for different people. Again, it depends on where it is taking place in your chart. For some, it might be personal. For others, it may be financial. For others, it may be in a relationship. For others, it may be actual, you know, it just really depends on your astrology. But what else will I say? Oh, yes, another thing that's important right now is that Uranus is stationing direct. Uranus, and so there is definitely plot twist energy in the air this weekend, Friday into the weekend, unexpected twist of events, and so there's that. The moon is also trining the north node in Aries, so it's like the heart has a desire that it wants to pursue. There may be a risk involved, but it seems like a great opportunity, and that there will be a lot of grace if you just follow your heart in that direction. And my battery's about to die, and I'm going on and on. The Leo square Uranus, as it's stationing direct, is also going to bring the element of surprise, an unexpected twist of events. Expect the unexpected this weekend. This is earthquake energy, you know, geologically, but in our lives, it can be more of a metaphorical earthquake, a rebellion, a disruption, an electrical outage, you know, all of that stuff. It can be very destabilizing to people's nervous systems, especially because it's like the full moon energy, you know, and Uranus can be a very volatile energy. So that's all present this weekend, shaking things up that are normally very stable and staid in our lives. And what else do I want to say? I mean, I've been talking for 22 minutes. There's a lot to say about the stars and the cosmos all the time. And the best way is to contact me directly for a reading. You can email me at empresseliane@gmail.com to get on my calendar. Follow me on Instagram at astrology.tarot.Eliane Nicole. Follow me on YouTube at Eliane Nicole. I always put just a small clip of the video on Instagram, and the full clip will be available on YouTube. And I look forward to reading for you one-on-one. Thank you for joining me.